Hello everyone, today we are going to learn Chapter 7 India's Cultural Roots from your social science text. In this video, I'll be covering each and every line from the chapter so you don't miss anything important. Make sure to keep your notebook and pen ready and take notes while watching. This will help you remember the concepts better. You can pause or rewind any time to write things down. So, let's begin. Folk and tribal roots. The cultural roots we have seen so far are well documented in many texts. India has also had rich oral traditions, that is, teachings or practices transmitted through everyday practice without written texts. This is the case of the Vedas. Among them are numerous folk traditions, that is, transmitted by common people, and tribal traditions transmitted by tribes. So, India has a very old and rich culture. A lot of what we know about our past is written in books and other texts. But India also has rich oral traditions. What are oral traditions? Oral means spoken, not written. In olden times, people shared knowledge by talking, singing, or telling stories instead of writing things down. For example, the Vedas, very old and important texts of India, were spoken and memorized, not written at first. Among them are numerous folk traditions. Folk traditions means traditions passed on by common people through songs, dances, festivals, and stories that families and villages shared with each other. And the other one is tribal traditions. These are special traditions followed by tribes. Tribes are groups of people who live close to nature, often in forest or mountains. They have their own languages, stories, music, and customs passed from one generation to the next. What is a tribe? There are many definitions for this social entity. Today, anthropologists usually consider a tribe to be a group of families or clans sharing a tradition of common descent, a culture, and a language, living as a close-knit community under a chief and holding no private property. So, a tribe is a group of families or clans who share a common history or ancestors. They have same culture, that is their way of life, traditions and beliefs, and they speak the same language. They live together as a close community, often led by a chief, that is a leader who guides them. In a tribe, people usually do not own private property like houses or land by themselves. Things are shared by the community. Interestingly, ancient India did not have a word for tribe. Tribes were just different janas that lived in a specific environment, such as forest or mountains. The Constitution of India uses the terms tribes and tribal communities in English and Janjati in Hindi. So, in ancient India, there was no word for tribe. Instead, tribes were simply considered as different kinds of janas, which means groups of people living in a particular area. And tribes were janas living in forests or mountains. Today, the Constitution of India uses the words tribes or tribal communities in English and the word Janjati in Hindi. According to official figures, in 2011, India had 705 tribes spread over most states, amounting to a population of about 104 million people, more than the populations of Australia and the United Kingdom together. According to official numbers are the numbers given by the government or a trusted authority after proper study or survey. For example, in India, the government counts people in a big survey called the census. The numbers from the census are called official numbers because they are checked and recorded. So, according to official numbers from 2011, India has 705 tribes. These tribes live in many different states all over the country. Together, about 104 million people, that's 10 crore 40 lakh people belong to these tribes. The total number of tribal people in India is more than the number of people living in Australia and the United Kingdom together. In the 19th century, anthropologists studying tribes often described them as primitive or inferior to civilized people. With deeper studies of tribal communities and their rich and complex cultures, such biased judgments have been mostly abandoned. In the 19th century, some anthropologists, that is people who study different groups of people, thought tribes were primitive, that is, they are not developed or even inferior. that is less than others, and that civilized people were better. These were wrong and unfair ideas. They were called biased judgments. Biased means being unfair. Later, when more careful studies were done, people found out that tribal communities have rich, complex, and beautiful cultures. They have their own language, art, music, farming methods, stories, and more. So now, most people no longer use words like primitive or inferior to talk about tribes. There has been a constant interaction between folk and tribal traditions and the leading schools of thought, such as those we mentioned in this chapter. Deities, concepts, legends, and rituals have been freely exchanged in both directions. So, folk tradition, tribal tradition, and other schools of thought have always shared ideas with each other. They share things like deities, that is, gods and goddesses, concepts, that is, ideas about life, the world, and how to live, legends, that is, old stories, rituals, special ways of praying or celebrating. This sharing went both ways. Sometimes local people took ideas from the big religions, and sometimes big religions took ideas from the local traditions. For instance, according to tradition, Jagannath, worshipped at Puri, Odisha, was originally a tribal deity. This is also the case with various forms of the mother goddess worshipped across India. So this sharing and learning from each other created a rich and diverse culture in India. For example, in Odisha, there is a famous temple in a place called Puri, where people worship a god named Jagannath. Today, Jagannath is seen as a form of Lord Vishnu, an important god in Hinduism. But long ago, according to tradition, Jagannath was first worshipped by tribal people. That means he was originally a tribal god. And later, his worship became part of the larger Hindu religion. The same thing happened with many forms of the mother goddess, like Durga or Kali, who are worshipped in different parts of India. Many of these goddesses were also first worshipped by local or tribal communities and later became part of major religions. Some tribes, on the other hand, adopted Hindu deities long ago and possess their own versions of the Mahabharata and the Ramayana. This has been well documented from India's northeastern states all the way to Tamil Nadu. So, some tribes also started worshipping Hindu gods long ago. They also created their own versions of famous stories like the Mahabharata and the Ramayana. These versions are found in many places from the northeastern states of India all the way down to Tamil Nadu in the south. How have such interactions taken place for so long and so naturally? It is, in the end, because folk, tribal, and Hindu belief systems have many similar concepts. For instance, in all three elements of nature, such as mountains, rivers, trees, plants, and animals, and some stones too, are regarded as sacred because there is consciousness behind all of them. So, how have folk, tribal, and Hindu beliefs mixed so easily and for such a long time? It's because they share many similar ideas. For example, all three believe that parts of nature like mountains, rivers, trees, plants, and animals, and even some stones are sacred or special. They think that these things have consciousness, which means they are alive in a way and deserve respect. Because of these shared beliefs, these traditions connect and influence each other naturally. Indeed, tribes generally worship many deities associated with those natural elements. For the Toda tribals of the Nilgiris of Tamil Nadu, for instance, one of them is pictured in the image on the right. Over 30 peaks of this mountain range are residences of a god or a goddess. Those peaks are so sacred that the Todas avoid pointing to them with a finger. Many tribes in India worship nature. This means they believe that natural things like mountains, rivers, and trees are holy and connected to gods and goddesses. One such tribe is the Toda tribe. They live in the Nilgiri hills in Tamil Nadu. For the Todas, over 30 mountain peaks are believed to be the homes of gods or goddesses. These peaks are so sacred, that is, holy, that the Toda people don't even point at them with a finger. They show respect in every way. But despite this multiplicity of deities as with Hinduism, many tribal groups have a concept of a higher divinity or supreme being. For example, several tribes of Arunachal Pradesh worship Donya Polo, a combined form of the sun and the moon, who later rose to the higher status of a supreme god. So even though many tribal groups worship many gods and goddesses, just like in Hinduism, they also believe in one main god or a supreme power. Example, in the state of Arunachal Pradesh, some tribal groups worship a god called Donya Polo. Doni means sun, Polo means moon. At first, they worshipped the sun and moon. Later, these two were joined into one powerful god, Donya Polo, who became the supreme god for them. This is also the case of the god Kandoba in parts of central India. In eastern India, the Munda and Santal tribals, among others, worship Singbonga, a supreme deity who created this whole world. There are many more such examples. So just like Donya Polo, many other tribal communities in India also believe in one supreme god who is the creator of the world. Example, Kandoba, worshipped in parts of central India. Singbonga, worshipped by the Munda and Santal tribes in eastern India. They are believed to be the supreme god who created the world. And there are many more such examples in different parts of India. The Indian sociologist Andrew Bettel summed up the situation in these words. Thousands of castes and tribes on the Indian subcontinent have influenced each other in their religious beliefs and practices since the beginning of history and before. That the tribal religions have been influenced by Hinduism is widely accepted. But it is equally true that Hinduism, not only in its formative phase but throughout its evolution, has been influenced by tribal religions. Sociologist means a person who studies how people live together in groups like families, communities, or whole societies. They learn about how people behave, their customs, traditions, and how different groups influence each other. For example, Andre Bettel is a sociologist who studies how different groups in India like tribes and caste affect each other's beliefs and ways of living. The Indian sociologist Andre Bettel said that in India, there are thousands of castes and tribes. Such long ago, even before written history, they have been sharing religious ideas, learning from each other, influencing each other's customs and practices. So they didn't stay separate, they mixed and helped shape each other's beliefs. It is true that tribal religions have been influenced by Hinduism. But it is also true that Hinduism in its formative phase, that is, the beginning stage when something is being formed or developed, and during its evolution, as it kept changing and growing, over time has been influenced by tribal religions too. This means both tribal and Hindu traditions have learned from each other and shaped each other over many years. Clearly, the result of this long interaction has been mutual enrichment. In this manner, folk and tribal beliefs and practices also count among India's cultural roots. We will further develop this point in the next chapter. So castes, tribes and different groups in India have been sharing ideas for a very long time. They have learned from each other. They have added to each other's beliefs and tradition. This is called mutual enrichment. It means everyone gained something and became richer in culture. So folk traditions and tribal beliefs and customs are an important part of India's cultural roots. They help make India's culture strong and unique. We will learn more about this in the next chapter. Before we move on, let's review the important things we have learned so far. The Vedas, India's earliest text, gave rise to several schools of thought. Vedanta and Yoga are among the best known. The Vedas are the oldest and most important books from ancient India. They helped people think deeply about life and the world around them. From these Vedas, many different ideas and ways of thinking were born. Two of the most well-known are Vedanta, which teaches about the soul and the universe, and Yoga, which teaches how to keep the body and mind healthy and peaceful. These schools of thought helped shape Indian culture and beliefs. Buddhism and Jainism departed from the authority of the Vedas and laid emphasis on some specific values and practices. So, while many Indian traditions followed the teachings of the Vedas, Buddhism and Jainism chose a different path. They did not follow the Vedas and instead focused on their own ideas. Both religions taught people to be kind, live simply, speak the truth, and control their desires. They believed that doing good actions was the most important part of life. Although these schools had different principles and methods, they also shared some important concepts. They were all looking for the cause of suffering and the means of removing ignorance. So, even though the different schools of thought like Vedanta, Yoga, Buddhism, and Jainism had different ideas and ways of teaching, they all wanted to answer the same big questions. They all tried to find out, why do people suffer? How can we remove ignorance, which means not knowing the truth. So, even if their paths were different, their goal was to help people live better, wiser, and happier lives. Tribal belief systems and art have interacted for millenniums with Hinduism. There was free borrowing and giving from every side. Tribal belief systems generally regard the land and its features as sacred. They often have, at the same time, a higher concept of divinity. For thousands of years, tribal beliefs and Hinduism have influenced each other. They shared ideas, stories, and even art. Tribal communities usually see nature like land, rivers, hills, and trees as sacred or holy. They also believe in a higher power or divine force, just like other religions. So, even though their beliefs may seem different, there has been a lot of sharing and respect between tribal traditions and Hinduism. The banyan tree is an apt illustration for the themes in chapters 7 and 8 and a fine symbol for Indian civilization. With its deep root system, massive trunk, and branches spreading in all directions, it can extend to a vast area and last for many centuries. It shelters a variety of flora and fauna and encourages its branches, though united at the trunk, to throw fresh roots of their own. Indeed, Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism regard the banyan tree as sacred. So, the banyan tree is a great way to understand Indian civilization and the ideas in chapters 7 and 8. Banyan tree has deep roots like India's long history, a strong trunk like the core values and beliefs in India, and branches that spread out in all directions like the many different cultures, traditions, and religions in India. Even though the branches grow in different ways, they are still connected to the same trunk. Just like that, Indian civilization allows many different ideas to grow while staying connected. The banyan tree also gives shade and shelter to many living things, just like Indian culture supports many ways of life. The banyan tree's branches can even grow their own roots while still being connected to the main tree. This shows how new traditions can grow from old ones while staying united. That's why Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism all see the banyan tree as sacred. So with this, we have completed part 4 of the chapter, India's cultural roots. I hope you found it easy to understand. If you want to see more videos like this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching. We will see you again in our next video. Bye-bye.